إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. So, inshallah, we will continue with, we were talking about satanic verses last week. I know you were not here, but I did put it on the class, the group. So if you want to go back and check, I will just do a quick recap. Obviously, we won't go to that detail, but so we'll finish that up, inshallah, today, and then we'll mainly discuss, inshallah, about the second immigration to Abyssinia. So, as we discussed, that after the fifth year of Dawah, not the fifth, in fact, after 3-4 years, the initial 3-4 years of Dawah, when Prophet ﷺ went public with his Dawah, the persecution got to a point where it was just too difficult for the Muslims to continue. So, Prophet ﷺ advised Muslims to go to the country of Abyssinia or Habasha, because the ruler there is a just king, and he will not persecute you, and you will be able to practice Islam without any persecution. So people left for 18 people left for Abyssinia, 18 of the Muslims, in the leadership of Uthman ibn Maz'un radiyallahu anhu, and then there was a rumor that reached to them that all the Quraysh has accepted Islam, so they all came back. And why did the rumor spread? Because of the incidents of satanic verses, which we discussed in detail last week, that once Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam recited Surah Najm in front of the Kaaba, and all the Muslims, non-Muslims, they were all there, and they all listened to the whole of the surah quietly for once, and they all got so emotional, and they all got so affected by it, that at the end, when Prophet ﷺ went into sajda, they all went to sajda with him. So that's the simplistic version of it, which is the most authentic as well. There are, but that's not the only version available. There are so the incident is called satanic verses because, according to some narrations, Shaitan added into the recitation 2 verses by saying himself. So when Prophet ﷺ recited the ayah 19 or 20, which talks about the Lat and the Manat, the Shaitan added 2 verses, that these are the mighty pelicans and their intercession will be accepted by Allah. And Kuffar heard that, and they thought, okay, Prophet ﷺ has kind of accepted as some sort of a middle ground, so he accepted our gods, so let's do the sujood. We don't have any problem. If he accepted our gods, then that's it, that's fine with us. So they went into sujood himself. They also went to sujood with Prophet ﷺ. So that's the second version. The third version is that Shaitan managed to inspire Prophet ﷺ and he said the two verses himself with his own tongue. So, which we discussed that a lot of scholars have rejected those versions, especially the version 2 and 3. Version 1 everybody has accepted, so that's the authentic. It's in Bukhari, Muslim, so that's no problem with that. But that has got nothing to do with satanic verses. There is no mention of satanic verses in it. But because our books have mentioned version 2 and version 3, the earliest of the books, and people have taken up those things from the books and they have made it into a big deal, and you know the name satanic verses of the book which Salman Rushdie wrote, he took the name from this incident as well. So that is why, because there's a lot of misconception and misinformation when it was taken by the Orientalists, so they spread a lot of misinformation. So that's why we went into a lot of this detailed discussion, and the kind of the upshot of it is that basically the second version 2 and version 3, they are rejected by most of the scholars as they are not true, so that didn't happen. Some of the scholars have accepted version 2 and a few have accepted version 3, big names, but majority of the scholars said we don't need to have these two versions, so they've kind of rejected it, that this is not true, this is not authentic, never happened. So when the Muslims came back after the first immigration, when they heard the news, so they came and they started. So, as we've discussed many times, that protection, everybody has to have a protection to live in Mecca, and protection is something like you can call it like a visa, as equivalent to the modern equivalent is like a visa. So when they left Mecca, went to Abyssinia, basically they revoked their citizenship. So it was understood that their visa has expired. So they have revoked their citizenship when they left Mecca and they immigrated. So when they came back, they had to actually find the new sponsorship, new protection to come back to Mecca. Lots of people, when they came back to Mecca, when they just reached Mecca, then the news reached to them that this news which we initially heard, that everybody has accepted Islam, is not true. It was just a rumor. So a lot of people said, okay, no, we will go back. So they just went back to Abyssinia, didn't even came into Mecca. Some of them, because as I said, it was very hard for them to leave Mecca and live somewhere else. They said, well, we are so close to Mecca, even if it is a rumor, if the news is not true, we'll try and go into the Mecca. So they had to find new sponsorship, basically, new visa to get into. So they started, so Usman ibn Maz'un, who's the leader of the group, he asked Walid ibn Mughira to, can you please sponsor me? Well, Walid ibn Mughira, he knew him well, so he was like a distant relative as well. So Walid ibn Mughira said, yeah, why not? I will sponsor you. So he sponsored Usman ibn Maz'un, and Usman ibn Maz'un came back to Makkah and started living as he was before he immigrated. After a few days, he saw that there is a lot of persecution to other Muslims, like Bilal and other people who didn't have any protection, or some of the people who couldn't find the protection when they came back, even if they were Quraysh, but they couldn't find the protection. So they were tortured quite badly when they came back. So Usman ibn Madun felt bad.
When you say tortured, were they beaten publicly or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So verbally beaten up, physically, so all sorts of torture.
This is while they were preaching.
Not necessarily, just because they were Muslims.
Just because they're
Yeah, just because they have accepted Islam, just because they are Muslims. And if somebody is praying in public, then that's definitely they will be tortured even more severely. So like we see in modern times what happened in Undulus in Spain when Ferdinand and Isabella they took over the Spain. They initially said, okay, we will let you be Muslim, but then they said, no, you can't be Muslim. Then they were thrown into the big fire pits. So everybody who was Muslim, so everybody, we all know the history.
The Inquisition.
Yeah, the Spanish Inquisition.
Also in Greece,
Yeah.
my son-in-law, Bassem, my
Mm-hmm.
daughter's
Yeah,
husband,
yeah, yeah.
her mother-in-law came from Greece. Her father was the mufti in Greece, and they said to him, one of three choices: either you become Christian,
Mm.
or get killed, or leave. So he left and came to live in Syria.
Yeah. Yeah. So
It's
yeah,
not many years ago.
yeah. I mean, and the same thing is with Spain as well. So lots of Muslims they left because they couldn't stay there, and so
We got modern examples as
yeah,
well.
it's also the
obviously,
same
Burma,
thing. Yeah.
Burma, ultimately in India,
Yeah.
what they're saying is,
Yeah.
you're Hindus, and you need to revert back to Hinduism,
Yeah.
and we're not going to have any Muslims.
Yeah, so that's the most
Modern version.
version. Yeah, you can say that. So
China.
and China is there as well. So yeah, so it's everywhere. So it's not just the Quraysh. So we have got modern versions. So we can learn lessons from the stories of Seerah and can apply to this day and age because
Yeah.
it's nothing which we can't really replicate what Prophet ﷺ did at his time. Um, so Usman ibn Madun felt bad that I've got this protection, but other Muslims, my brothers and sisters, they don't have the protection. So he went to Walid ibn Mughira and said, well, look, uncle, I can't carry on having your protection because I feel bad. Lots of my Muslims don't have protection and I enjoy this protection of yours. So I'm going to give you back your protection. So I give you back your protection. And so Walid said, is something happened? Did somebody said anything? Is my protection not good for you? He said, no, everything is fine. You have done the marvelous. You have done everything which I expect you to do. It's just that I feel bad. It's just my own choice that I give back your protection. So he gave back his protection. So basically how it used to work, that they will go to Kaaba and announce that I am giving protection to so-and-so. And if they are revoking that protection, that will be the same thing. So they will go to Kaaba and they will announce Usman ibn Mazun has given back my protection, so he's no longer under my protection. So that's how it used to work. So Usman ibn Mazun revoked his protection, his citizenship again. On his way back to his home, he's walking, he's feeling Iman is really high because he's done something for the sake of Muslims and Allah, and he's feeling really upbeat. On his way back, there was a poet who was reciting one of his poems, Labid. He was one of the famous poets of the Arab. So much so that I think one of his poems was in the Mu'allaqat al-Sabah. So there were like 7 poems which are the most famous poems of the biggest poets of the time, and they were hanging inside the Kaaba, and one of them was Labid, I think. But he was like a really famous poet, and he was there. He was like a guest of honor called, having a gathering, and he was reciting. He was reading his poem, and there was a big gathering in front of him, and he said. One of the verses he said, "Ala kulli shay'in ma khallallahu batil," that verily everything other than Allah is useless. So, very good statement. So Usman ibn Mazun was standing there. He said, "Sadaqta, you have spoken the truth." He felt a bit irritated. Usman ibn Mazun, for him, it's like a heckler. So if somebody is doing a comedy routine and somebody started heckling from the audience, so for him he was like a heckler. But he carried on because he said, Sadaqta, you have spoken the truth. That's fine. So it didn't really bother too much to him. The next verse he said, وَكُلُّ نَعِيمٍ لَا مَحَالَةُ زَائِلٌ, that every blessing without any doubt will disappear, will vanish, will perish. Um, and Usman ibn Mas'ud was standing again in the crowd. He said, "Kadhabta," that you have lied. So on that he felt really irritated, that how dare somebody, he's being disrespectful to me. I've been called in as a, so he said, since when the Quraysh started disrespecting their guests like this? Um, so basically, Usman ibn Mazun meant that Jannah would last forever. So that's one of the blessings which will never end. So when he said that there's every blessing without any doubt will end, he said, no, you have lied. Jannah is forever and ever, so it's not going to finish. So that's you. That statement is not true. So people started. So there was somebody standing there next to Usman ibn Mas'ud. He smacked him really hard and gave him a black eye, basically. So he came back, and Walid ibn Mughira saw him. So saw Usman ibn Mas'ud and said, "My nephew, I told you don't give up my protection. Why did you do that? Let me take you back, and I will announce that I'm giving my protection back to you." And the answer of Usman bin Mazun is really nice. He said, "Well, no. In fact, my left eye is in need of the same blessing as had my right eye got. So don't worry about your blessing. Keep your protection to yourself. I am fine. I am in Allah's protection, and I'm going to keep Allah's protection." So that's Usman ibn Madun. There was another Sahabi, Abu Salama. Who's the cousin of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abu Salama is a cousin, but he's not a Hashemite. He is from Banu Makhzum, so he's a cousin from his mother's side. Abdullah, who is the father of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his sister is Abu Salama's mother. So he's from the mother side, his cousin. So, but his father is from Banu Makhzum. So, and the lineage goes through father. So the Abu Salama was Banu Makhzum. Who is the most famous person of Banu Makhzum? Should know. Comes every time in the Seerah. I can tell you that he is not from the Muslim side. Abu Jahl. Yes, well done. You can have my biscuit. No? Okay, fine. You'll get the chocolate at home then. So Abu Jahl is from Banu Makhzum. So, and we know that he's the strongest, worst of the enemies of Islam. So when he heard that Abu Salama is reaching to for protection, so Abu Salama basically asked Abu Talib that, can you give me protection? And Abu Talib said, yeah. He announced that I'm going to give the protection. So Abu Jahl came and he said, no, you can't have one of ours. So you can't give protection to one of the Banu Makhzum.
That's our problem.
That's our problem. So you can't interfere in our problem, because he thought that I've got a chance to squeeze Abu Salama now. So but Abu Talib said, why can't? He's my nephew, like Muhammad is my nephew. If I can give protection to Muhammad, why can't I give protection to Abu Salama? It's my choice. I'm giving the protection to him. And then there was lots of kind of to and fro going. So big discussion, heated discussion going on. And then Allah actually helped Abu Talib from a person who nobody expected that will help. So Abu Lahab came and he said, leave this old man alone. Have you not irritated him enough? And he just basically shut Abu Jahl up. And Abu Lahab said, and obviously Abu Lahab was one of the enemies as well, and everybody knew that he is a strong enemy, but he is a Hashemite and he is a brother at the end of the day. So he felt that brotherly kind of thing that
It's an honor element.
yeah, it's a
as well.
brotherly
If he's
honor.
offering his protection,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So it was that Jahili honor basically. So he said, leave him alone. So Abu Jahl just went, and Abu Talib gave protection to Abu Salama, so he was under the protection of Abu Salama. So then when people saw that the news is all kind of false, it's not, nobody has accepted Islam, the situation is the same, persecution is the same, so they thought that we should go back. And then they heard from people who actually did come back from Abyssinia, that how good they were there. So they were living a nice life there. There was no persecution. They were able to be a good Muslim openly. Nobody was bothering them. So more people thought that yes, we should immigrate to Abyssinia as well. So the second immigration, there were 80 people. So 80 people immigrated. And we have to realize that Mecca was not a big city. So there were like about, say, 1,000 people in Mecca living. So 80 people is almost like 10%, 8 to 10% of the whole population. So it's a big number for them. So suddenly a big number left and immigrated. So it was like a bit of embarrassment for Quraysh as well. So they couldn't, the first immigration, they were not bothered. So they let them go. Nobody went back behind them to bring them back to Makkah or anything. The second time when they immigrated, they felt really embarrassed that what will people say that 10% of their population have left the city to go to another country because they can't live there in their own city anymore. So that's why they sent some delegations to go and get them back. Before we go to that, Osman ibn Affan and Musab ibn Umair, who immigrated the first time, they decided that they are not going to immigrate anymore, so they stayed in Mecca. Prophet ﷺ made Jafar, his cousin, Jafar ibn Abi Talib, who's the son of Abi Talib, who's older brother of Ali, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So he made him in charge. So of all those 80 people when they immigrated to Abyssinia the second time. So there's a story. Abu Bakr thought that he should immigrate as well. And he packed up all his bags and everything, and he thought, I'm going to leave. And when he was leaving, with all his bags packed and everything, Ibn Daghina, who's one of, he's not from Quraysh, but he's from one of the neighboring tribes of Quraysh. He was a business partner of Abu Bakr. And he said, Wallahi, nobody like yourself can immigrate to another country just because their own people don't leave you to live here anymore. I can't really see that, like over my dead body kind of thing. So he said, he hold on to Abu Bakr's hand, took him back to Mecca and said, I'm giving him my protection. So would you accept my protection for him? So Quraysh said, yeah, why not? He's the chieftain of our neighbor tribe. He's giving him protection. Okay, he's not from a Quraysh, but we have got close ties with him because of the business which we do. So they said, yes, we will accept your protection. So Abu Bakr lived under Ibn Daghina's protection after coming back to Mecca. And then he said, but there's one condition. The Quraysh said that there's one condition for him to come back and live in Mecca again, that he won't recite Quran or pray publicly, because he's one of those who used to pray publicly. So he said, okay, I won't do that. So he built a little room inside his house, like a little masjid, and started reciting inside his own house and reading. And Aisha Razatana, who is narrating this hadith, she says that Abu Bakr was like a very gentle man who would cry quite easily. So he would easily weep. So when he was reading Quran and he will come across an ayah which is talking about Jahannam or any punishment from the Allah or any of those things, he will just started crying, and he had a very melodious, very gentle recitation. And people started queuing up outside his house to listen to him. And Quraysh said, well, we stopped him from reading in public, but we can't, what can we do? He's reading inside his house, we can't do anything. But then they went back to Ibn Daghana and they said, no, you have to stop your companion that he can't recite inside the house as well. So yes, we have prevented him to recite or pray outside the house, but he can't do that inside the house because they thought that people are getting affected because he's reciting and they know that he's got this room and they can hear from outside the house. So Ibn Daghana came back and he was not that strong man. So he said, look, Quraysh is really making it hard for me. So you have to promise me that you are not going to pray or recite inside the house as well. Or at least you will not be reciting loudly. So if you have to do it, just do it so that they can't hear it from outside. So in that instance, Abu Bakr said, keep your protection. I don't need your protection, but I will keep on reciting Quran and I will keep on praying. So after that, Abu Bakr was without any protection as well. And the scholars, Seerah scholars said probably that was the time when that incident happened, which we discussed, that Utbah was Uqba ibn Mu'ayth was trying to choke Prophet ﷺ, and he was in the sajda, and then Abu Bakr came and started beating him from the behind, and then they started beating Abu Bakr up to a point where he basically equivalent to be hospitalized. So he was like bloodied and bruised because he had no protection. So nobody actually stopped them beating Abu Bakr. So probably this incident happened at around this time. So, but Abu Bakr was living there without any protection. Then these 80 people, they went to Abyssinia again, and the king of the Abyssinia, which is called Najashi. Najashi was not his name. Najashi is like a title. It's like Caesar. The Russian kings, they used to be called Caesar. So that's the Roman, sorry. What did I say? Tsar, yes. What did I say? It's Russian. Yeah, no. I meant Roman. Yes, so the Roman, they used to call Caesar. So that's similar thing. So Najashi is like a title, but his name was Ashuma. Ashuma was his name. And he was the king of Abyssinia. When, as I said, after the second immigration, Quraysh felt really embarrassed that there's lots of people who are leaving. We need to do something. So they sent two people like a delegation to bring those back. So they went and they met the viziers initially of the king, and they gave them lots of gifts, nice gifts, and so basically they bribed them, and they said that these people who have left the country, left their religion, and they've been causing mischief in the city, and now they have left they have left Makkah and they have came to your country, and they will probably do some harm in your country as well. So we are going to ask Najashi to give them back to us and send them back, basically exile them from your country so that we can take them back and deal with them. So would you please just side with us tomorrow when we speak to Najashi? And they said, yeah, we'll do that. And then the next day, Najashi, they came and they spoke to Najashi, and they did the same thing, said the same thing to Najashi, that look, these are people who are causing problems, and that's why we were persecuting them, and then they have left and they have come to you now, and they will cause problems in your country, like
They're
what we have gone.
terrorists, brother.
Yeah, so like what we again, there's a lot of similarities. You can see that in today. So immigrants are coming and people are coming, and so these are terrorists, as you're saying. So same thing happening even today. So sorry. So the Najashi, but because that's why Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam sent these Muslims to Abyssinia, he said that he's a just king. So that was the reason for sending him. What was the reason? That he's a just king. So he will not do injustice to you. He will listen to you. He will look after you. So, and that's what Najashi did. Najashi said, well, I need to listen to them directly from them before I make any decision. So he called the Muslims and he said, why don't you send your leader and come and tell me, answer the allegations, basically. So Jafar came. And again, that's, I mean, it's a little thing that there was a tradition that everybody who will come, they will bow down to the Najashi, to the king. Then Jafar came and they told him to do the same thing, and he said, no, I'm not doing it. Because our Prophet has told us that you don't bow down to in front of anybody other than Allah. So I'm not bowing down. And that actually gained him respect, because
Bow or prostrate?
prostrate or bow down, like almost like
Sujood.
prostration. So they used to go down into like the sajda to in front of the king, and they said that we are not allowed to do that to anybody except Allah. So
But
and
the reason I asked is because in some cultures in the
yeah,
Islam,
you
they
just
say
have
bow
doing
down.
that. That's a different thing. Bow down means like doing sajda. So he when he didn't do that, Najashi actually had a bit of respect for him. That look, although he's in such a difficult position, but he's still true to his principles. So when you stick to your principles, you will get respect from your enemies as well. And that's true even today. So if somebody has principles, even the enemies will give him respect. And that's happened to Jafar as well at that time. So then Jafar came in when he asked, explain yourself, these people are here and they are saying all this, so what would you say? So that's the reply of the Jafar. He said, oh king, we were plunged into the depth of ignorance and barbarism. We adored idols, we lived in chastity, we ate the dead bodies and we spoke abomination.
What does it mean we ate the dead bodies?
The cannibals, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one thing, there's little meaning that we eat the dead bodies.
But they ate the dead people.
Well, I'm not sure if they're talking about the dead bodies of human beings, or because we Muslims, we don't eat dead animals either. So it's haram to eat dead animals. So you have to have a zabiha. But that's
Oh.
not.
I think the example there would be like in America, some Americans will eat roadkill. So if they find a dead animal by the side of the road, they will eat it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's it. Like your father says, we will only eat a live animal that we know has been zabat properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
What if it's like, so you mean like even if you've like slaughtered in the systems, it's still a dead animal when you...
No, but zabiha is not dead on its with natural causes. So you have sacrificed, and you have to sacrifice in the name of Allah. So the name of Allah has to be said before you can say it's halal. Okay, so it's not just using the knife or cutting, which is zabiha. It's actually saying the name of Allah is the most important thing. where were we? So dead animals, dead bodies, yeah. And we spoke abomination, we disregarded every feeling of humanity, and the duties of hospitality and a neighborhood were neglected. And this is a long, so I'm not going to go into it, so you can have a read. This is from Rahiq al-Makhtoum, the book I've taken. So basically, he had this very nice speech. Najashi said, "Go away. I'm not listening to you. So there's nothing wrong with these people. I'm going to keep these people." So he sent them back. Amr ibn al-As, who's a Sahabi, he became a Sahabi later on, but at that time he was not. He was not a Muslim, but he was a politician, and he remained a politician even after becoming a Muslim as well. And he was one of the high-ranked people in Umayyad's dynasty when it's all started. So Amr ibn al-As, he said to explain, clarify, because I've heard this. So Jafar started reciting Surah Maryam, and in that, when he finished the Surah Maryam, the phrases from the Surah Maryam, Najashi had a stick near him. He picked up the stick and said, "Wallahi, Isa is nothing more than what you have said by this stick." So there's no difference between Isa and what you said, even this stick, even by this stick. So that kind of tells us that he was like a proper monotheistic Christian. And we know that he accepted Islam later on. He was a Muslim. Later on, he became a Muslim. So they were sent back, Amr ibn al-As and the other Quraysh. Najashi said, "Forget about it. You are not getting these Muslims. You go back." So they were humiliated and they were sent back. And Muslim, there's a hadith. It says that we prayed for Najashi during his battles to make sure that he won the battle, because if he remains the king, then they are safe. So for their own safety, they wanted Najashi to be the king. And when Najashi said that there's nothing, that doesn't exceed, Jesus doesn't exceed by this stick, to what you said, there were people in his whatever it was, the parliament or whatever that is, that who said, when the news reached them, they said, "Wow, Najashi has been blasphemous about Jesus. Then how dare he said that?" And they started making a plot, and obviously Najashi had his own spies. So the news reached him that people are angry about him, or angry on him that you have said this, and they are making plots against him. So before they could do anything, he gathered all of them, and he said, "Well, I've heard some rumors. What do you have to say for yourself?" And they said, "Yeah, means you said that Jesus doesn't exceed by this stick, but that's not our belief. What about him being the Son of God and all of that?" And Najashi knew that this will come up to that question, so he didn't want to lie about it, but he couldn't say to them, "Yes, I don't care what you think. I'm not believing in Trinity," because that would be a revolt against him straight away. So he tricked them by writing on a piece of paper that "La ilaha illallah Isa Rasulullah," and that I believe in just one God and Isa was the Rasulullah, and he put that in his garment, upper garment, his thobe. And then when they asked him, "Do you believe in Jesus being the Son of God and all of that?" So he said, "I believe this." So he's pointed to the piece of paper which he had in his pocket, that "I believe this." So they thought that he's saying what we are telling him, that "I believe this," but in his heart he was actually just pointing it to what he's written in his piece of paper in his book.
You said that he wrote La ilaha illallah, Isa Rasulullah. Was he allowed to say that at that time?
Yeah, he was a Christian.
You're allowed to say that anytime.
No, but you said that you can't say anything, any prophet other than Muhammad, so you have to
No,
say.
no, you can say Isa Rasulullah,
Yeah.
and
No,
that
it's
was
in
the
my
kalima. That was the kalima of the Christians, and he was a Christian. He was a Christian at that
so-
time,
Okay.
like a true Christian who truly believed Isa alayhi salam when he came.
Yeah,
So
they wanted him to say Jesus, Son of God. He said, I believe what's here.
Okay.
He meant, they thought he was saying what's in my heart,
yeah,
while he meant what was
in
the
this
paper.
in his pocket.
Okay, I just thought that he was converting to Islam.
He converted.
No, he converted later on.
Okay.
Yeah, but he was like a secret Muslim. He never openly announced his Islam.
Okay.
So this is another story of Najashi, and once the Najashi started having a battle with one of the neighboring countries, and he was worried that if I lose and somebody else took over, they will not be as good to Muslims as I have been. So he called Jafar and told Jafar that, look, I have got a ship ready for you in such and such port and such place. So why don't you send somebody just kind of who can spy on the battlefield to see if I'm winning or losing, and if I start losing, come back and just get out of here. So basically, Musab ibn Umair, I think, was the Sahabi. They sent him, and he was camped to look at the battlefield to spy on who's winning and who's losing, so that if the Najashi started losing, that he can just rush back and tell the Muslims that they were all packed ready, that they will get into the ship and leave and go somewhere else.
Yeah, there's this incident also, some scholars say the Muslims offered to join his army
Yeah.
and fight with him. But he said, no, if I lose, you get killed.
Mm.
And from that, our teachers telling us that if you are like in Britain, can you
Yeah.
join the British army or not?
Yeah.
Comparing that to what Jafar did, the answer
Yeah.
is yes.
Basically, you can, because there's no fight between Islam or not Islam, so it was not a religious fight. In that case, Muslims are allowed to side one side, which they think is on truth
But what
or
about
closer
now,
to truth.
but
Even
what about
today.
now with Britain fighting
Even
against
today.
Muslim countries?
Oh, that's a different thing. So if Britain is fighting a Muslim country, and it is because of Islam,
Yeah.
that's a different thing. But to be
Well,
honest,
okay,
if Britain is fighting the Muslim countries of today because the Muslim country is being unjust,
Yeah.
or they're killing their own people or doing something like that, means I'm not a scholar to give any fatwa or anything, but I think we will have to probably look for the scholars to tell us at that time.
Well,
the
the issue there is that in that case, the person could say, I'm going to go to this war, I can't go to this war. When you're
We can't.
when you're part, no. In that case,
Mm.
they
Yeah.
were volunteering to fight in one war. They were not
Yeah.
saying, we're going to support you unconditionally, whatever you do, which is
Yeah.
what joining the
Yeah.
the British Army is. You pledge what the minister, when he decides
You
to
pledge
go.
your allegiance.
Yeah, you pledge your allegiance regardless of what
Yeah.
the war is.
Yeah.
So means if
is
you are in
different.
army,
Yeah.
and that you will have to fight every battle, wherever the army will tell you to
Yeah.
go, you will go.
The Iraq-Kuwait war was for the petrol. It was
Yeah.
when they
Yeah.
invaded Kuwait. And
Yeah.
But also, Muhammad Ali, he refused to go to Vietnam.
Yeah.
And he went to prison. He said,
Yeah.
no, it's not a just war, no,
Yeah.
I'm not going.
Yeah.
He went to
And
POW.
Muslims agreed with him at that time.
No, he went to
Wait,
prison.
Muhammad Ali is in the
He
fight.
went to prison.
Yeah, he went to prison because
Yeah, but he was drafted, and he chose, instead of saying, okay, he could quite easily have said, I'll go and fight because
Yeah.
you, the government, have told me I have to go. But he made the stand to say, no, I won't.
yeah, and because he was vocal about it, and he was kind of saying that government is doing the wrong thing, so he got jailed for that reason.
But do you mean Muhammad Ali, like
Muhammad Ali,
boxer?
the boxer, yeah.
Okay.
There are far more severe consequences. I mean, people probably know that when the British were fighting against the Ottomans,
Yeah.
the Indian Muslims that refused, they were executed.
Yeah.
They were shot at one time.
Yeah, I mean that is something where you have to be probably have to draw the line, because although that was still a political, but then that was the only Khilafah which was there. So Muslims fighting against their own Khilafah, so they took a stance.
But as you've said, the Muslims made a stand and said we're not going to fight, and they were shot.
Yeah, I mean they were killed, but then I mean that's
That was
the
their
degree.
choice.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
the degree of your iman. So if you have got a way out, then okay, you can just take a way out. But Islam doesn't kind of expect us to go and kill ourselves. So like Ammar ibn Yasir, when Prophet ﷺ told him that if they come back to tell you to say I'm not a Muslim, and then say I'm not a Muslim, just because otherwise they will kill you. So if you are worried about your death, then you can do things. Well, the Islam allows you to do that.
But in modern times, from my experience, is that the British intelligence service, military, and even like GCHQ, from personal experience, they will ask you where your allegiance is, and they will reject you. For example, a few years back, I applied to GCHQ, and I was asked by my family background if I go to Pakistan, how often do I go? And I said, yeah, I have family there, and I have feelings for them.
Yeah.
And that was the end of the interview.
Yeah, means obviously, and I don't blame them, to be honest. Means obviously they need to know that the people are 100% with them, so they have got no feeling for anybody else. So we will, whatever we will tell them, they will do it. If they don't have those people, then they probably won't.
In some jobs, they wouldn't. If you're a dual national, unless you're American and British, then you can work. For example, BAE. If you are Saudi and American, they wouldn't let you work
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So they need to know that what their allegiance is, and what their if they tell them to do something, they will go and do
But this
that.
is often the struggle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where the Americans have tried to negotiate with the Taliban or whatever. The Americans will always say, "Yeah, we understand, but," and they turn and say, "No, there's no but. We believe in Allah. We have given our word. That's it. You know, we draw a line there." Whereas they like greyness and flexibility. So.
But sorry.
It's an interesting discussion, because a few years ago in Living Islam, they had the chaplain, or the equivalent of that, in the army, and he was telling this room full of Muslims, and there was someone from Prevent, which is the the Islamophobic policy, and and at the beginning anyway. Now they've changed it to say even far right is even far right is covered by Prevent, but initially it was just targeting Muslims. But he was saying, the army is this, we have halal food, we have prayer areas, and even some of these ads they have for the army, they've shown someone praying, like that's the full ad. It wasn't proper praying, but when you saw it, you know what they were trying to do to get Muslims to join.
From my experience within the intelligence and the military, they have literally GCSQ is built as a circle. And if you look at the analogy, it's like an onion skin. The lowest level of security is on the outside. And as you get towards the inner circle, it gets higher and higher. So depending on what your job is, who you are, and how you think, you get so far within that network.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I mean, this Abyssinia is a very good example for us to imitate for the Muslims who are living in the Western countries, because the Muslims there, they didn't have any political ambition. So they were not trying to, by a political ambition I mean that they were not trying to overthrow the government, Najashi's government. They were very much involved in the society, and they were very useful in the society, but they were not plotting or planning or doing anything against Najashi. Obviously they were not, because that was the best option for them, but other than that as well, they never actually had in their hearts to overthrow the government or take over the government or do anything. So that's something which is like a role model for us, and I think it's the closest what we can get. Nothing is exactly the same, but that's the closest what we can get. Be good Muslims, be a productive part of the society, even if we don't have any political ambitions to overthrow the government, because we don't
Because
want
you've got
to.
the freedom to practice your faith as
Yeah.
you see fit.
So there is no we have got, and that's what most Muslims are. So that's what I'm describing everyday Muslims of Britain or all the Western countries. Nobody wants to establish Khilafah in Britain. We don't have any of those ambitions here. So that's what we are imitating is the
Very few want to establish them in Muslim countries.
yeah. I mean there's nothing. So there's we've got no political ambitions. We want to be just good Muslims, have a freedom of a religion.
But on a very positive note, on this, that again, if you look at the First World War and Second World War, some of the largest contingencies of volunteers and recruits were from Muslims.
Muslim countries. Yeah.
It's a shame because Dr. Ghanem had a slide yesterday to describe what Muslims should be, what we should be doing
Yeah.
in the community.
Yeah, I mean, I was with a friend, so I couldn't attend, but I actually saw that in the on Facebook. Yeah, so I watched the whole thing on Facebook.
First slide kind of described quite
Well,
accurately.
Yeah.
what we should
I think
do.
you've mentioned before where we work with non-Muslims, we have an affinity for
Oh,
them.
you have
And I
to.
think as Muslims, we have a greater affinity to our Christian and even dare I say our Jewish colleagues because of, we believe in this core,
Same God,
we believe in
yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah.
They are, they are our predecessors, whereas often they don't understand the relationship. They'll say, your God, our God. You say, there's no your God, our, it's the same God, don't you understand? We believe in the same thing. So, unfortunately, I think we see how important it is for us to have good relations. Unfortunately, I don't think they understand it as well as we do.
Probably to some extent, we have to look at what are we not doing right.
Yeah.
So for that not to happen, what you are saying. Inshallah, we'll finish. Sorry.
Just to add, in 1973, because my uncle was in Burma
Yeah.
along with the British, I left Holdview School and went to Bullring and signed up for. I wanted to be an electronics engineer, so I joined the REME, Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, and after about 6 weeks, they'd give you everybody basic training, and I was about to sign for 3 years, and during that time, I think there was some IRA were in full fledged, and everybody had to go to Ireland as part of the British Army. And my mother found out, and she was really crying on the phone every day, and I just thought. And the day I left, they gave me a little certificate saying discharge on request, but I'm on the reserves. I could be called up if the war starts. But the day I left, they went absolutely. He banged the table and he says, "What are you, a man or a mouse kind of thing, Are you still a little baby, you're listening to your mum and things like that, But the other argument is that many say that our families are here, we are here, this is our home, so we will join the forces, we are protecting them as well in a way. So that's another argument people give. And the other thing is the recent person who was killed in Afghanistan, the families every now and then have a little press release. The last one was during the memorial. They were not invited. They wanted some kind of recognition. Look, our son gave our lives for Britain, and so there are a few. But there are many who joined the Royal Air Force. I know many who have. They're happy. They think it's the best thing they've done, and things like that. So.
And I would again say, means I'm not a scholar to make a kind of a statement, but I personally don't see any problem with that. People joining armed forces and doing what they need to do. To be honest, there is no religious war going on in the whole world at the moment. Even if what we're seeing in the Muslim world, there's nothing religious about it. It's all political. It's all about gaining power and all of that. So there is nothing religious at the moment. At least I have got no example to tell you that look, this is. So I mean, there's nothing religious going on at the moment
So
in the
even
whole
the ones
world.
that are being labeled religious are not religious.
No, they are not. They're just being sold as being religious in inverted commas. So
you
there's
wouldn't
no
say
such thing as.
the Uyghurs in China, that's not religious. I mean,
No, that's
That's persecution.
a persecution.
That's true. We can
No,
see
that's
that, but there are
that's.
no.
There's no war going on.
There's
I'm
no-
talking about any big wars and
It's
whatever
like
the
Iran
countries are
now,
doing.
or Yemen, or where there's, or Iraq, for example. You could argue was the Iraq with the kill Saddam. That was about power. That was about controlling oil. Even this recent bombing with Iran, I would contend, has got nothing to do with Iran bad America. What's the only consistent thing? The price of oil has gone up. This is all about petrodollars and who controls it and so on and so forth.
The only thing I would add is that, and I'd like to note is that when I worked in a totally white school, and there's I see here a little bit of who is he and what's and whatnot, and I just say, by the way, do you know I've been in the British Army? That's enough for me. You should see them; they just go, wow, these guys do. What can they say?
He's
So I think it's generally a good thing, if you join them.
Okay, inshallah, we'll finish here. The next time we will talk about the boycott and those kind of things, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Okay, assalamu alaikum. Yeah.
Then, yeah, he was
Hmm?